Hello everyone, my name is Nilanjan Chatterjee and today we have come up with a new video that is Ancient Universities of South Asia. We'll be talking about the ancient universities of India, knowledge and political patronage. Okay, so between 6th century BCE and 13th century CE, okay, 6th century BCE to 13th century CE, South Asia witnessed the rise of some of the world's earliest and most influential centers of higher learning. Okay, as we can see, these were not merely institutions dedicated to religious instructions, but comprehensive universities that cultivated a wide range of knowledge, okay, from metaphysics to logic and linguistics to medicine, astronomy and statecraft. Okay, as we can see in the next slide, the universities of ancient and early medieval India, including Takshashila, Nalanda, Vikramashila, Odantapuri, Somapura, Vallabhi, and Jagaddala, became the crucibles where ideas were forged, cultures interacted, and civilizations advanced. So, if we look at ancient Indian history, we'll see these organizations or institutions, educational institutions to be precise, actually shaped our civilizational heritage, okay, from early ancient to early medieval period, okay. Let's come to the next slide. The first point of today's discussion is Takshashila, okay. Takshashila, nexus of empire and education, okay. So in 6th century BCE, the Achaemenid Empire incorporated Takshashila, introducing Persian administrative sophistication. Okay, so in 6th century BCE, what happened? The Achaemenid Empire, they incorporated Takshashila to be one of its territories. Okay, and the second point is from 4th to 3rd century BCE, the Mauryan period marked Takshila's golden age under Chandragupta and Ashoka. This is a very important point. From 4th century to 3rd century BCE, Takshila became very crucial and prominent because of the Mauryas, okay, especially Chandragupta and Ashoka. Third point is the Indo-Greek period, which is also very important. Rulers like Menander, okay, don't forget the name. Rulers like Menander I, Menander the First, foster Hellenistic and Buddhist philosophical interactions in Takshashila. Point number 4, in 5th century CE, white Huns, who are also known as Hephthalites, invasions lead to Takshila's decline. Okay, so finally in 5th century BCE, because of the invasion of the white Huns, who are also known as the Hephthalites, the Takshila, the University of Takshila, kind of came to a decline. Located in the Gandhara region of modern Pakistan, Takshashila emerged as a global center of learning due to its geographical significance. Okay, situated at the crossroads of trade routes connecting India and Central Asia and as well as Persia, it flourished under successive empires who recognized its strategic importance. Okay, unlike later centralized universities, Takshashila functioned more as a university town. Okay, it was more of a university town where numerous teachers offered specialized trainings in their respective fields. Okay, students from elite backgrounds traveled vast distances to study specific masters in disciplines ranging from Vedic literature and philosophy to medicine, military sciences, as well as linguistics. Okay, next slide, Takshashila's academic life and legacy. Okay, subjects taught in Takshashila were Vedic literature and ritual sciences, I've already mentioned, philosophy, especially the Nyaya school, the Sankhya school, Buddhist philosophy, Jain philosophy, etc. Okay, third is political science and economics. Fourth is medicine and surgery, especially Ayurveda, and military sciences as well as strategies. These were the topics taught in Takshashila University. Okay, the pedagogical approach of the Takshashila University, according to the contemporary sources, oral transmissions, memorization, that is the common Indian practice of learning, memorizing, that is vritti, debates, that is Vada. India has a philosophical tradition called Vada. I mean, it is a common literary as well as philosophical tradition in India that is called, it is almost like a genre that we call Vada. That means debate, okay? Also you can say discourse, apprenticeships, okay, discipleships, and specialized teacher driven education, okay. Next point is the notable contributions of Takshashila, Chanakya's Arthashastra on statecraft. It is claimed that Chanakya himself was a part of the Takshashila University. Panini's work on Sanskrit grammar was also composed in Takshashila. It is imagined, and Gandhara art style synthesis. In the next video in our channel, we'll be talking about the Gandhara School of Art. Please stay tuned. But before that, I want to mention this particular school of ancient Indian art kind of generated in Takshashila or around the Takshashila region. Okay, east-west philosophical exchanges, because of its geographical location on the northwestern frontier, it had the opportunity of exchanging thoughts between East and the West and model for later institutions. Okay, archaeological excavations reveal that Takshashila was a well-planned urban center comprising monasteries, lecture halls, residential quarters, temples, and sophisticated water management systems. The Dharmarajika Stupa, please remember the Dharmarajika Stupa attributed to King Ashoka stands as a testament to the Buddhist architectural patronage. Okay, though Takshashila declined after the White Hun invasions in the 5th century CE, its intellectual legacy lived on. Its models of specialized education and interdisciplinary scholarship that we already mentioned profoundly influenced later institutions, helped shape Buddhist scholasticism that traveled to China and Central Asia via Silk routes. This is also important. It opened the Silk route for intellectual exchanges, okay, scholastic exchanges. Very good. So the next slide is the Nalanda University, the jewel of Buddhist learning. The foundation of Nalanda University, the very first point, established in the early 5th century CE by Kumaragupta the first, who provided endowments and oversaw development of a structured campus in Nalanda. Expansion under Harshavardhana, which is very crucial. Emperor Harshavardhana expanded endowments, okay, constructed additional temples and monasteries, adjoining areas, okay, and invited scholars from far-flung regions, okay. From Harshavardhana's time, it reached its peak, okay, Nalanda Mahavihara. So the next point is the Pala Renaissance, okay. After Harshavardhana's death, it suddenly came to a gradual decay, but later on, during the Pala period, especially Dharmapala and Devapala transformed Nalanda into a transcontinental educational powerhouse with 10,000 students and 2,000 faculty. Okay, finally, the destruction. Bakhtiar Khilji's forces, Ikhtiaruddin Muhammad bin Bakhtiar Khilji's forces sacked Nalanda around 1193 AD, burning its famed library and massacring monks. Okay, so located in Bihar, India, Nalanda flourished for nearly 8 centuries under the patronage of successive dynasties. As we've already mentioned, the Gupta rulers strategically promoted it as a part of their broader religious and political policy, while the Palas later transformed Nalanda into Oxford of the East. Okay, this is also a very important epithet. We call Nalanda the Oxford of the East. Admission to Nalanda was fiercely competitive. with candidates undergoing rigorous oral examinations. The curriculum was diverse, reflecting the university's commitment to multidisciplinary education from Buddhist philosophy and logic to medicine, mathematics, and fine arts. When it was established, it was more of a general kind of an educational institution, which later on developed into a more Buddhist monastic kind of a institution during the Pala period. Okay, so Nalanda's great library and global impact. As I've already told you, 10,000 students were there in Nalanda from across Asia, including Tibet, China, Korea, Southeast Asia. 2,000 faculties were there, monks and scholars teaching diverse subjects. Library buildings, there were three significant library buildings. Please remember the names: Ratna Sagara, Ratna Dadhi, and Ratna Ranjaka. Ratna Sagara, Ratna Dadhi, and Ratna Ranjaka, housing hundreds of thousands of manuscripts. Okay, and for 8 centuries it remained extremely prominent. Okay, despite his physical annihilation, Nalanda's intellectual legacy endured. Tibetan monastic universities trace their roots to the Nalanda tradition, and university's model of rigorous interdisciplinary learnings continues to inspire even modern educational efforts, including the establishment of the new Nalanda University in 2010. Okay, also another point that I forgot to mention is that the Chinese pilgrim Huan Sang noted that it took 3 months to merely skim through its catalogs, skim through the catalogs of Nalanda University. It was so vast. Okay, the library's destruction during Turkish invasion was one of the greatest losses to human knowledge in recorded history. Now let's come to the next slide, that is Vikramashila University, Dharmapala's Buddhist vanguard. Why are we calling it? Let's explain. So Vikramashila University also propagated Vajrayana Buddhism, that is the tantric manifestation of Buddhism. It also propagated logic and debate, emphasized dialectics and epistemological methods, Sanskrit grammar following Paninian traditions, medicine and healing, Ayurveda and surgical techniques, also arts and crafts, okay, sculpture, painting, mandala design, etc. Established in the late 8th century by the Pala emperor Dharmapala, Vikramashila was founded to rejuvenate the intellectual rigor of Buddhist scholarship in eastern India. Located in Bhagalpur, which is in Bihar, it was strategically positioned alongside trade and pilgrimage routes leading to Bengal and also the Himalayan foothills. Okay, Vikramashila's layout featured a massive central stupa. Okay, archaeologically speaking, its layout centered a massive stupa by 6 gateways, each guarded by accomplished scholars who tested and mentored students. Okay, the university specialized Vajrayana Buddhism, but offered comprehensive curriculum covering various disciplines. Okay, now in this slide we'll be talking about Vikramashila's global impact and legacy. First point, Tibet. The Tibetan monks studied at Vikramashila and carried back texts and doctrines that formed the bedrock of Tibetan scholastic traditions, including some sects of Buddhism. Point number 2 is Nepal contributed to the synthesis of Indian Buddhist logic with local traditions in the Himalayan regions. Third point is Southeast Asia hosted scholars from Java, Sumatra, reflecting vibrant intellectual networks across the Indian Ocean. And modern revival. Okay, modern revival includes underway to revive efforts underway to revive Vikramashila's legacy through archaeological conservation and new centers of Buddhist learnings, Buddhist teachings, studies. Vikramashila actively engaged in academic and religious exchanges, okay, with neighboring regions. The great scholar like Atisha Dipankara Sri Gyana who played a pivotal role in the second diffusion of Buddhism in Tibet, was trained in Vikramashila. His teachings bridged Indian and Tibetan Buddhist traditions, ensuring university's legacy far beyond the Indian subcontinent. Okay, like other Buddhist institutions, Vikramashila also met its end during the Turkish invasion under Bakhtiyar Khilji, Ikhtiaruddin Muhammad bin Bakhtiyar Khilji, in 1193 CE. Despite its physical destruction, its intellectual traditions survived through Tibetan Buddhist monasticism, as we can see. Now, the next point is Odantapuri Mahavihara. Okay, Odantapuri Mahavihara, which is also known as the Bihar Sharif Mahavihara. Okay, founded by Gopala the First, established by the first ruler of the Pala dynasty in the 8th century CE, is a stronghold of Buddhist scholasticism, academic focus, specialized in Buddhist metaphysics, Vajrayana Buddhism, logic, and dialectics. Okay, these were the core areas covered in Odantapuri Mahavihara. Okay, Odantapuri, which is also known as Udandapura, okay, was founded as a part of the Pala Empire's political and religious agenda to propagate and spread Buddhism in an era marked by resurgence of Brahminical orthodoxy. The Palas aimed to reassert Buddhist dominance across the eastern Gangetic plains through institutions like Odantapuri. Okay, the university maintained close institutional ties with Nalanda and Vikramashila, forming a network of mutually reinforcing centers of learning. Okay, many monks pursued sequential education across the centers, refining their expertise in various disciplines. Okay, Odantapuri Mahavihara also served as a quasi-political role, projecting the Pala Empire's commitment to Buddhist patronage. So, from these like educational institutions, what we can understand that religion, apart from religion, these institutions played a very important role to assert political powers of these. So what we understand from these like educational institutions is that these institutions played a very important role in asserting not just religious but also some political authority. Okay, and that is why when Islam came to India around the late 12th century, it targeted these universities because these universities, along with its religious connotations, played a very important political, role. Okay, in different empires. Okay, now the next is strategic location of the Odantapuri Mahavihara, situated in the heart of Magadha, the sacred Buddhist landscape encompassing Bodh Gaya and Rajagriha. Okay, international connections. Monks from Odantapuri played a significant role in transmitting Buddhist tantric teachings to Tibet. Now, in this slide, we'll be talking about Somapura Mahavihara, monument of Pala vision. Okay. First of all, let's talk about the architectural marvel that is Somapura Mahavihara, spread over 27 acres with a vast square courtyard surrounded by 177 individual monastic cells and a colossal center shrine rising in a pyramid-like structure. How grand it was, we can understand from this image of Somapura Mahavihara. Okay, an artistic heritage, ornate terracotta plaques depicting scenes from Jataka tales, Buddhist iconography, and local folklore adorn the structures. Okay, Somapura Mahavihara, a spiritual center, daily routine involved rigorous meditation, scriptural recitation, philosophical discourse, vada, as I mentioned, and communal rituals. Okay, like communitarian rituals, one can say. Founded by the Pala Emperor Dharmapala in 8th century CE, okay, 8th or early 9th century, Somapura Mahavihara in modern Bangladesh. It is located in modern Bangladesh, was an expression of Pala dynasty's imperial religious ambitions. Okay, by building this monumental complex, Dharmapala showcased Bengal's preeminence in Buddhist world. Okay, the design of the Mahavihara, particularly of the central shrine, symbolized Mount Meru. Okay, the cosmological axis of the Buddhist universe. This symbolism reinforced the monastery's spiritual authority and ideological connection to Buddhist cosmology. The influence of Somapura's architectural style is evident in Buddhist temples across Southeast Asia, particularly in Java, Borobudur, and Cambodia. Okay. Now let's come to the next slide, that is the Vallabhi University. The Vallabhi University, the Maitraka dynasty's intellectual arsenal. Okay, political science, training for bureaucrats, diplomats, and military strategists formed a core component of Vallabhi University's curriculum. Okay, graduates often secured high offices in regional administration, underlining the institution's direct linkage with statecraft. Okay, law and commerce, emphasis on trade regulations, taxation systems, and mercantile law reflected the region's commercial importance. Okay, Maitraka dynasty, during Maitraka dynasty, practical training prepared students for roles in Gujarat's thriving maritime trade networks. Okay, Vallabhi University, religious studies, Vedic studies covered ritual sciences, ethics, and philosophy. Jain philosophy, particularly the Shvetambara tradition, which was prevalent in the Gujarat region, reflected the dominant religious ethos of Western India. Let me give you a recap. Vallabhi University flourished under the patronage of the Maitraka dynasty, which ruled Western India from mid 5th to 8th century CE, located in modern Vala, Gujarat. The university's rise paralleled the growing prosperity of Saurashtra as a trade hub, connecting Western India with the Persian Gulf and the Mediterranean Sea. In contrast to Buddhism dominated institutions in East India, Vallabhi, on the other hand, represented a more pluralistic academic culture. Okay, Chinese pilgrims like Huansang and Yi Jing praised Vallabhi for maintaining academic standards comparable to Nalanda, hosting about 6,000 students and 300 teachers at its peak. Okay, next point is Jagaddala Mahavihara. Okay, the Pala Empire's last light. Okay, textual preservation. Okay, focus on preserving Buddhist manuscripts. That is the reason this Mahavihara was constructed. Translation projects, another very important aspect of this Mahavihara. Collaborations with Tibetan scholars to translate works, particularly Buddhist works. Cultural bridge, okay, transmission of knowledge to Tibet, transmitting Indian like knowledge generated in India to Tibet. Okay, established in 11th century CE by the Pala kings, later Pala kings, particularly under Ramapala, one of the later Palas. Jagaddala Mahavihara was conceived as specialized center focusing on advanced Buddhist studies and preservation of transmission of textual knowledge. Okay, located in Bengal, it was Pala heartland, less vulnerable to the political instability affecting the Gangetic plains. Okay, Jagaddala became renowned for its focus on Buddhist philosophy, Vajrayana studies, logic, linguistic training. Scholars such as Atisha Dipankara Srigyana, who played a pivotal role in revitalization of Buddhism in Tibet, were associated with the Jagaddala scholastic tradition. Okay, the emphasis on transition reflected a broader Pala policy of extending cultural influence into the Tibetan plateau. Okay, cultural influence of Buddhism and Bengal to the Tibetan plateau. Okay, now we have come to our concluding slides, that is the comparative analysis foundation purpose. Okay, Each university was established with different purposes reflecting political and religious priorities of their founding dynasties. Takshashila evolved originally around strategic trade routes, I've already mentioned, emphasizing political grooming and practical sciences. Nalanda was founded to serve as the premier Mahayana Buddhist center under Gupta and Pala patronage. Vikramashila was established to restore scholastic rigor, focusing especially on Vajrayana Buddhism. Odantapuri strengthened Buddhist orthodoxy against Brahminical resurgence. Somapura Mahavihara served as a symbol of imperial Pala power, Buddhist and Buddhist cosmopolitanism. Vallabhi focused on secular, administrative, and Jain learning under Maitraka dynasty. Jagaddala finally represents the last effort to safeguard and transmit Buddhist scholasticism to Tibet. Okay, as we can see from this graph, Takshashila survived for almost 1100 years, Nalanda for 800 years, Vikramashila for 400 years. Similarly, Odantapuri, Somapura, they also survived for 400 years. Vallabhi survived for 600 years, and Jagaddala survived for only 100 years. Okay. Comparative analysis, dynastic patronage. Okay, on one hand we have Maitraka supporting the Vallabhi, multiple empires including Kushanas, Indo-Greeks, Mauryas supported Takshashila's cosmopolitan learning environment. Okay, and finally, as we can see, Takshashila concentrated on statecraft, military sciences, medicine, grammar, practical disciplines. Nalanda, Mahayana studies, logic, medicine, astronomy. Vallabhi, political science, Jainism, secular law, commercial studies, etc. And Vikramashila, of course, Vajrayana Buddhism, dialectical training and tantric practices. Okay. Comparative analysis, we have come to the final slide of comparative analysis. That is, Takshashila maintained connection with Central Asia, Greece, serving a crossroad of Eastern and Western knowledge. Nalanda attracted scholars from China, Korea, Japan, Southeast Asia, becoming a magnet for Buddhist learning. Vikramashila, Jagaddala profoundly shaped Tibetan Buddhism through translation projects, etc. Somapura influenced Southeast Asian Buddhism, okay, especially Java, Sumatra region, and Vallabhi maintained a more regional focus, okay. So as we can see, the legacy and transmission of knowledge, Tibetan preservation, East Asian transmission, Southeast Asian influence. I've already discussed like how Tibet, Nepal, Southeast Asia, they were all influenced by these scholastic traditions. Modern discovery of archaeological and archaeological significance. First of all, UNESCO recognition sites like Nalanda, Somapura are now UNESCO World Heritage Sites, acknowledging their global as well as cultural significance. Educational revival, modern institutions like the revived Nalanda University seek to recapture interdisciplinary and international spirit of their ancient namesakes. Archaeological excavations, ongoing archaeological excavations continue to reveal new insights about the layout, function, and daily life of these ancient centers of learning. Okay, historical reassessment, scholarly works re-examining these institutions' contribution to global intellectual history and educational models. Okay, so that is it for today. Feel free to share your thoughts. We'll be coming with new videos in upcoming days. So like, share, and subscribe. Stay tuned to our channel. Thank you very much.